eat in the daytime, morning or lunchtime. So by using high temperature, long time, we minimize or we eliminate the zinc property and we make it more yang. By eating in the morning and at lunch, we use the yang environment to support for that. Right? So if we don't know how to cook and we put that at the end, so that means all of the food we already cooked, it have a yang property. Now when we put the soy product at the end, first all the yang will be absorbed into the food we already cooked before, and also it don't have enough time to transform the zinc into the yang. See? So in that case we need to cook the tofu or the soy product first to eliminate the zinc property, and then also it have a long time enough to have the heat penetrate in that, so make it become more yang. And the other issue relate to how to harmonize all the members in our family or in our group, because not everyone the same, right? So one person may be more yang than yin, the other one may be more yin and yang. So if we tolerant, if we be mindful, and we will know which one needs to eat more yin, which one needs to be eat more yang. So when we cook, we take out maybe a portion just enough for the person to yang, and then we continue to cook longer for the people who are yin. And the ingredient still follow the same token. Some ingredient only sauce and oil. When we put on the top, we may put that first, and all the ingredient we should add later on. And some ingredient, for example, lemon juice, vinegar, miso, soy sauce, etc. we need to add at the end when we already finished the cooking. Because if we, for example, if we add table salt too late, it don't have enough time, especially when we cook with vegetable, because most of the nutrition, most of the good stuff of the vegetable, it stays inside its molecular and the fiber cover outside. Look like we have any treasure. We don't want to display out there for everyone, right? We want to hide and deep secret as possible. The same thing, the nature, especially for the vegetable, they know if they display the good stuff outside on the surface area, the insect will come to eat and to extract that. The UV sunlight will destroy that. The heat from the sun will destroy the oxygen in the air will oxidate it, and the vitamin with the heat it will convert or evaporate. See, so that's why all of the good stuff on the nutrition, on the vitamin hidden inside the fiber molecular. And our body, the human being, don't have the enzyme, don't have capacity to break down cellular, that means the fiber, to extract all that. That's why if we want to use it at the fresh, we have to use the extractor centrifuge to use the centrifuge force to extract it out, and we just drink the fresh juice. Otherwise, we have to use the temperature and the table salt to extract it out, because the table salt considered the most yang, and the temperature, that is the heat, that is the most yang. When we use two very strong yang force, we will put it internally out to the surface. By the time when we put it in our mouth, the blood in our tongue will extract it and get it through the buccal area into our bloodstream right away. We don't need to chew, we don't need the enzyme in here to secrete and to try to digest it. So save the energy for our body. But if we not know how to add salt at the beginning, it doesn't have enough time to penetrate into the vegetable molecular, okay, to put out on that good stuff. So when we eat, our body, especially liver and gallbladder, try really hard, even though they know some that they don't have a capacity to produce enzyme to break down the cellular, but they still try the best to produce any similar enzyme to break down the cellular molecular. Finally, they spend a lot of time and energy, but they still cannot extract much. So waste of the energy, waste of time. And if we continue to do that, the liver and the gallbladder, the stomach and the small intestine have to work harder, and it becomes tired and exhausted. So the order of adding ingredient is very important. And when we, after we finish cooking, we display that on the dish, the bowl, on the table, it still have another effect. Like we already learned, the second level of energy through our eye, our ear, our nose, our tongue. So if we cook the food is not really good quality, but if we display it beautifully, the smell really good. If you extract the people and they have a scent of really good, and it stimulates the appetite, right? So we, at that time, they either already have absorbed the second energy level already. So the first level, just the material only, it's not affected much. On the other hand, if we have a very high quality food, but we don't know how to cook, we make it become clumsy. The color of it's so clumsy, the smell no good, and the way we display terrible. People look at that and they don't have any appetite at all. So, and then their mind shut. So it affects the second and the third level. So by the way, when we put the food in our mouth, it have no positive effect at all, even though it have a very high quality. See, so very important when we know all of different level of the energy of the food, so we can combine all of that together to make our product, our cooking become the best of it. So when we, even though when at home we don't have a steam machine, so if we want to steam vegetable, it takes a lot of time and energy. So it's not really productive when we do it at home, unless we have a big equipment in the restaurant or in the big cooking house. But at home, when we do cooking for the vegetable, we should not eat it raw. We will explain later on why the Westerner have a tendency to eat the raw vegetable. What is the advantage and what is the disadvantage? But as we already learned, even though when we compare the vegetable, the fruit, some may be more yang than the other, but overall, the vegetable, the fruit, always zinger than the grain or the animal product. So by using heat and table salt, we try to make it become more yang. Secondly, we try to put or extract all of the positive nutrition, good stuff, vitamin inside the fiber molecular out to help our body digest and absorb faster and easier. So when we have the water in the cooking spot, we have a table salt in right away, we boil it up, and we have a few 1 or 2 teaspoons of olive oil, sesame oil on the top, and when it boils again, we put all the vegetable in, we mix it, and we close the lid for 5-10 minutes. When it's already boiled again, we just take the lid off, and depend on how we want to eat. We want to eat well done, we can leave for another 5-10 minutes. But if we want to eat it crunchy, we can take it out after 5-10 minutes, depend on what kind of vegetable. But if we pay attention, we will see the color of the food before we cook, and at the right time when we cook, the color will be brighter. For example, the broccoli, when we see raw, it's not really green. The carrot is not really bright color. But if we cook at the right temperature at the right time, all of the good ingredient, good stuff inside we put outside. And then when it comes out to the surface area, the oil layer will hold it back. So it not evaporate. It not really dissolve into the water. So all of that will be high concentration of the surface area. So when we keep the same that, and we turn off the cooker and we can take it out, we have the high color, the brighter, and the taste it becomes sweeter. But if we overcook or we use the wrong temperature, the color now is overhealed, right? It becomes now more crunchy. Okay, it's no good. And the taste is no longer sweet, okay, terrible, because all that ingredient, all that substance, now it becomes complicated and complex substance. So it destroys the property of the vegetable. So cooking temperature, cooking time, very important. And if we can do that correctly, we rise up the level. Instead of on the first level, we now go to the second level of color, of smell, of taste. So make the vegetable become more valuable, more energy. So after we cook the milk, now we start to eat. We have to know how to eat correctly too. And we already mentioned when we combine all the food for cooking or at the time when we eat, we should know how to combine the group of the food together appropriately. Remember, we had the protein, we had the vegetable, grain, carbohydrate, fatty acid, oil, and fruit. So whatever close next to each other, that is the best combination. Whatever far away, that is no good. So we try to minimize that. And depend on the digestive system, but most of it, when we have the root combination far away and the ratio inappropriate, we will have a distension and indigestion, gas passing of flatulence. Therefore, we should not eat sweet fruit or vegetable together during the meal. We either eat at the beginning of the meal or at a separate meal. And the reason we already explained, because the sugar in that will make most of the protein, the vitamin, and the fatty acid in the meal become clumsy. And when it becomes clumsy, it not only wastes the material, the nutrition in the milk, but it will make deposit along the GI tract, and that deposit, if it will get rid out of the GI tract, is still good for our body. Not really big concern. But the problem, because it stay there and it extract more all the good stuff and bad stuff in the food, in the GI tract, to form the stone or to form the polyp or the tumor, and it blocks the way of passage through the GI tract. And also, when it becomes all that complicated substance, the body will recognize that as the no good substance, harmful. So our GI tract will secrete more mucus to protect itself. By secreting more mucus, it will trap it one deeper and hold it one harder. It gets thicker. So the deposit makes it harder to move along. So it makes it worse. The other thing we already explained last night in the question and answer section, we should not, or we minimize drinking any liquid or eating soup in the middle of the meal. We may drink 15-20 minutes before meal, or about an hour to an hour and a half after the main meal. If we want to eat soup, we either eat at the beginning or at the end of the main dish. And minimize drinking in the middle of the meal, especially cold soft drink with carbohydrate or with the gas. Two very important points, that means the technique or the art of eating of healthy and of successful. That means how to know how to eat and the proportion of the meal during the day. When we eat, if we follow on the recommendation like this, we should have a small spoon, small bite at the time. And we chew usually depend on what kind of food, but I use at least 50 to 80. And when we chew the brown rice, more than 100 times a mouthful. The reason why we chew small and slowly, because when we chew, not only to make the food we eat become small, get easy for digestion and absorption. That's not the important point. If that's the main point, why not put in the mixture or in the grinder and make it become powder and we drink it easier, right? So that's why the first purpose of the chewing is to clean it, to make the food become smaller. Yeah, but it's not the main purpose of chewing carefully and slowly. The problem nowadays, because we eat too fast, so and then we end up with a lot of disease of the low immune system, a lot of sickness. Why? Because when we chew slowly, carefully, it's not only to make the food to broken down smaller, but our saliva will be stimulated and secrete more when we chew, right? So by the action, the saliva will mix with the carbohydrate and it attracts the sugar and absorbs directly in the vocal area into the blood vessel right away. So it saves time and energy for digestion and absorption. And you can feel the sweetness right away in your mouth. By that action, we will feel comfortable, feel full, so we don't need to eat much. Secondly, when we chew slowly, carefully, the saliva will secrete a lot. And our saliva is an alkaline fluid in our body. And it has a lot of antibiotic, anti-inflammatory effect. So when we chew slowly, the saliva secretes more and more. And when we swallow down to the stomach, our stomach doesn't have to work much, right? And if the stomach doesn't have to work much, the acid chlorhydric not be secreted much. So overall, our body fluid become alkaline. When it penetrates through the blood, through the intestinal wall into our blood becomes alkaline, and our immune system will be pushed up. On the other hand, if we not chew carefully, slowly, we cannot take the sweetness. It cannot absorb it here. It has to go down to stomach. the stomach had to work harder to make the food smaller, to mix with the digestive fluid. And because we don't chew carefully, so the saliva not secrete much, the antibiotic activity and the inflammatory activity not secreted much. So when the food going down to the stomach had to work more, and the stomach fluid, that is chlorhydric acid, and this is the strongest acid. So by the time when it's finished the digestion, overall the body fluid will be acidic instead of alkaline. When it penetrates to the intestinal wall into our blood become more acidic. And when our blood become more acidic,